It's February 1st, 2018, 8 o'clock in the morning. Here is my 1951 Zenith Wadsworth Entertainment Center that I restored to working condition a while back. I have videos of it. And about a week ago, a friend of mine came over and I demonstrated this set for him, and it worked just fine. I'm using the RCA disc player on top right now to demonstrate it. It's not what I really want to do in the long run, but it's what I'm doing right now. And it worked okay, but there's a problem. And this is an antique, a museum piece, and so I don't really watch this set, but I have it working so that I can demonstrate it to anybody who might be interested. And from time to time I need to operate it to make sure it's working, and keep the capacitors that are the new capacitors in it in good condition. So I turn it on for about an hour or so now and then, maybe run a disc through it. Well, there's a problem, and I'll show you. I'm going to turn it on. We're turning to channel 3, and let me turn the light out so you can see what I mean. Takes it a while to warm up. There it goes. Now it's flickering in the camera because of the sync it's not in sync with this camera, but that screen is perfectly blank, and I can turn the sound up, and that's what you're hearing for sound. You notice no difference when I turn channels. Now I want to turn the RCA on, and you should notice something on the screen. Nothing. So it's getting nothing through the RF section. Now I'm hoping the problem is just a tube. I'm going to start with testing the tubes in the tuner and then in the IF section. But if I have to pull the chassis, if it's a problem underneath the chassis, if I have to do that, there's a capacitor I put in the horizontal whisk circuit that's incorrect, and I need to correct that, so that'll be a good time to fix that. Right now I've left it because I put it back together and then realized my mistake. However, I'm going to start with testing tubes. And I'm starting with testing the tubes, hoping it's just a tube problem. Might even be the tube pins. Old sets like this, the pins sometimes stop making good connection. I'm going to clean them off with a little deoxit. But I'm starting with the 3 tubes that are up in the tuner. That's a 6C4 in the tester. It tested good, but I'm going to keep going until I can see if I can find a bad tube. If not, someday I'll have to pull the chassis again. So I may have found my problem. The 3rd tube in the tuner, and the easiest one, by the way, to get out and plug back in, there are 2 6CB6 tubes in the tuner assembly. The one in the middle, you can't imagine how difficult it was to plug that tube back in. I probably should retest it, but I'm thinking about pulling it out and trying to get it back in and lined up, the pins lined up so it plugs in the socket was difficult. But this one, this is the grid leak test. Way up in the bad it went. So I'm thinking this is my problem, is the 6CB6. I'm going to see if I've got another one. I think I do. I'll plug it in and see if the set still works. By the way, here is the other 6CB6 and where it's located right there. This is the one that I've got pulled out, but you can't imagine how difficult it was to relocate that tube back into the socket. It was really a challenge. And I checked in one of my tube caddies of tubes. Here's a new old stock replacement. I'll test it before I put it in. But I have a whole box of unboxed tubes that I may have a few of them in that I can test and see if they work, but I'll test this one before I plug it in. Then I'll test the set and see if this fixes it. I have the new tube plugged in, but I haven't tested this yet. If it tests out okay, I'll put it all back together and make the last video clip on it. But I wanted you to notice this wire here goes from the ground of the chassis and up to where the high voltage attaches to the CRT. That's a metal CRT, of course. I discharged it before I attached that wire, and the reason I attached that wire is because CRTs have a habit of hiding high voltage in it somewhere, and they'll accumulate again on the side, and I just didn't want to get hit with a little spark. It wouldn't have been a bad one, but oh, I've had enough shocks in my day. I don't need to add any more to it, so I just put that on there for safety reasons. Have to remember to take it off before I power on the set. Unfortunately, that tube was not the problem. The tube definitely tested bad on the grid leak test. The new one tests perfect, but that was not the problem. I might have to pull that other tube out and retest it, which I don't want to. But I'll start with tubes in the IF section. This 6AU6 tube is the second video IF amp, and it's almost dead. You can see how low it's reading. So hopefully that's my problem. I'm going to get another 6AU6. I think I have dozens of them around somewhere. Get another one and pop it in there, and maybe that'll fix the set. We'll see. Here's a 6AU6 I pulled out of my bin of tubes. It's a used tube, but good. Pulled out of a junk set years ago. But I'm going to test the remaining IF tubes just to make sure before I put the set, the back on the set to test it. I don't have a cheater connection that quite fits it, although I could rig up something, but I'm going to make sure that the other tubes are good. But that 6AU6 that was really dead, that was probably my problem. At least I'm thinking that way. And we have success. It was the third IF amp, the 6AU6. That's my RCA video disc player. So there you go. I'll put this back together now. Okay, so now let's see what we get. Hopefully this thing is going to work. Well, there we go. Here's my RCA video disc player. And here, Betty Davis, Now Voyager. Let's put this in. Probably a good disc for this old set.